Yes, subject-verb agreement reminds me of the Titanic. You see, subject-verb agreements must agree with each other. They must stay together in a way, um, in number. I'm meaning. So if you have a subject, let me turn that off. If you have a subject that is singular, then you're also going to have a verb that is singular. And if the subject itself is plural, if you have a plural subject, plural meaning more than one in that subject, then the verb is going to be plural itself. Now there are different ways that this, there's different ways we write it out, but the main point that I want to get in on this video is that while we're going to be going through some sentences together, I want us to always remember that by no means it is a rule in literature that if you have a singular subject, you in turn are going to have a plural verb or a singular verb. If you have a plural subject, you are going to have a plural verb. Think about it in this way. When somebody is in love, right? And there's an old saying that says, let no man separate, right? What God has brought together, right? It's a empirical truth, right? So this is in itself one of those truths that in understanding the English language, we know that in our sentences we have a subject and we have to have a verb. Now, if the subject in this sentence is singular, then of course our verb is going to be singular. I'm repeating this over and over again so that we have a strong understanding of what subject-verb agreement is. There is an agreement between the subject and the verb that by no means will it change. You can't have a singular subject and have a plural verb, and we're going to find out just what that ends up looking like. Now, like love, sometimes things don't, to the outside person looking in on this agreement, sometimes it looks strange to us. So when we see literary or artistic titles, like if we have a title of a painting or have a title of a book, when we see that written out, you're going to see that the verb used for that being the subject, even if the title itself is plural in nature, and it being the subject, the verb itself is going to be singular. We see that a lot. Forms like that, we can even see that there's certain titles to things. Could even be the subject, I'll give you an example here, like mathematics is the study of math, right? Or something simple like that. Even though there's an S on it, it's almost like it even takes off that S of that title. Now that seems very confusing, but luckily I have some sentences written out here that we are going to go over together as a group, and we are going to work through this. We're going to also be going over contractions. Those are the fun words, those two words that combine together, like doesn't, isn't, wasn't, don't, aren't. My favorite one out of all of them, weren't. Weren't sounds like somebody in the deep South came up with that one. And finally, I'm going to give us a challenge, because then I'm going to introduce to us that even the number of a subject, so whether when I say, if you hear me say number, the number of a subject or the number of a verb, I'm talking about if it's singular or plural. So let's get that. So the number of a subject, we're even going to go over if there is a number of the subject, It doesn't matter. It is not affected by phrases between the subject and the verb. What I like to, as a little story here for you, or a way to make a connection with this, is once again, there is no separation of these two. They are locked in an agreement, just like something like how God sees a marriage or our relationship with Him. There's nothing by any means can take us away from that. And you'll see that even though there are words in between and the preposition, it doesn't matter. The subject will always stay faithful to the verb. The verb will always stay faithful to the subject. And this is an agreement that we have. So, without further ado, let us go ahead and try out. I wrote some mock-up questions, some mock-up sentences, and I want us to do this together. We're going to start off with simply just subject-verb agreement and simple sentences. And then we will go through, some might have contractions in it, one might have a contraction in it, and we're going to see which one matches up. We're going to do this together. So, let's go ahead and flip this camera over, if I know how to do this. And we will do it like this then. Okay, so as you can probably see here, I don't think you can. Let's try to get it down like this. Okay, so as you can probably read here, it says Jingle Bells, blank, my sister's favorite Christmas song. Now, we have options here. We have is, or we have are. Now, one of the things I want to bring back up to you is, remember, we know that Jingle Bells here, that's the subject, and it is the title of a song, a Christmas song. So we know that even though there's that little s here, we know that we're going to still treat this as singular, right? So the verbs down here, is or are, those have to remain singular. So I'm going to give you a second to tell me which one do you think is singular. I'll give you a second. If you chose is, then you are correct. So, Jingle Bells is my sister's favorite Christmas song. Now, let's, just for fun and games, let's go ahead and put down are. Another way, guys, if you want a quick test to see if you did it right, just read it out loud. Jingle bells are my sister's favorite Christmas song. Now, that doesn't sound right. That sounds like you don't know what you're talking about. So, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Nathan blank know the way to the church. Uh-oh, we have a contraction here. So what will it be? Will it be don't or doesn't? Well, let's look at the subject. So the subject is Nathan, right? And we can try both of these. Let's do it like this. I'll give you a quick second to try to figure it out yourself, but let's give it a second. You know what? Let's go with this one real quick. Now let's say it out loud together. Nathan don't know the way to the church. Yeah, it doesn't sound right. Let's try the other one and see if it fits. Might not fit. Nathan doesn't know the way to the church. Yeah, I think that's about right, because we know that as this is singular, we know that singular means doesn't. Now, our singular contractions that you're normally going to see that are always used for a singular subject is doesn't, isn't, wasn't. The plural, like I went over, don't, aren't, weren't, my favorite one is weren't. If we use don't, this is a plural contraction. This doesn't being a singular contraction. And we know that if the subject is single, then guess what? The verb is going to pay homage to that. It's going to honor the agreement, and it is going to remain single as well. Now, this is something that I want us to go over real quick. So now, in the sentence, plants in the desert use water efficiently. Now, we know that this is where I was going to when I was talking about how there are some that no matter how many sentences are in between, however many sentences are in between, means that it really doesn't matter. So we can have, let's do this real quick so I can show you. The job on this is a little bit, as you can see, my awesome laminating skills here. Plants in the desert use water. Okay, so as we're looking at that, I want us to understand that as desert is not the subject. This is the object in the preposition. So we still know that plants is actually the subject, and the verb used here is use. Now, I didn't go over use as being plural or singular, but use is actually plural. So if use is plural, what do you think the subject is going to be? Now, plants is not, it's not used here as a title, which means that it doesn't fall under that little rule there, that even though it is a title of something, a professional title of something, it keeps its S. It's allowed to keep its S. So that is that means plants in the desert. There's plural. There's multiple numbers of plants in the desert. So that means if that's going to be plural, then that means the verb use, water efficiently, use is going to be plural as well. So we always have to remember that even if there is a singular objective in our preposition here, it does not matter. That agreement is going to stay exactly the same. Now we are going to try one of these, and I'm hoping these two are stuck together, so that's probably what's causing my problem. All right, so this is a nice blank one. Let me put you guys back down here. I thought this thing had a flip camera. It does not. So we see here that the delivery man with his packages is here. So I'll give you guys just a flat second. Just go ahead and look over that sentence. See if you can pick out. I want you to pick out the subject. There is a objective to the preposition in here, and I want you to pick out what the verb is. Okay. So let's go over this together, and I'm going to use brown. Okay, so the delivery man, so that is our subject. That looks gross. I'm going back to black. Good try, though. Oh, goodness. That's so gross. Okay, so the delivery man, so that's our subject, with his packages. Now, you may think that was the subject, but that is not the subject. This is going to be our objective in the preposition, packages. And if you notice, even though I messed up the E, it has an ES, right? Or excuse me, it has an S at the end of it, making it plural. So we know that packages is plural, okay? Now, if you pick this, good job. This is. So that is going to be our verb. Now, as that is our verb, we know that is singular. So good job if you got that. So is itself is singular. If we look up here, notice this. Man is singular. So it still agrees. Man, the subject, is singular. And is, the verb, is still singular. Even though we have an object in the preposition here, it does not matter. It's still considered the subject and the verb. Now, if you guys want, if you want more time to practice these, I will tell you that the best way you can do that is to just write out some sentences, right? And the main point of this is to let you guys know that even no matter what comes out, no matter what, if the subject is singular, the verb is singular. And if that subject is plural, verb is plural. Now, understanding this biblically, this is how we interpret our Bible. This is how we understand what God's Word is really trying to say to us. So I'm praying for you guys. Thank you for tuning in, just for that little brief review on subject-verb agreement. And I will see you soon. Bye.